Hello and welcome back to RamsTalkPodcast. And Derby County have signed another player, and it's another attacking option for John Eustace. Rhian Brewster has signed on a free transfer following the expiry of his contract from Sheffield United. And I thought, what better person to get on to talk about Rhian Brewster than Hal from Sheffield United Way? How are we, mate?
I'm good. Well done. You've got Rhian Brewster baby, as we call him.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came up as a surprise over the last probably week. It wasn't really out there. Came up at the back end of the week that we were interested, and then signed. So he's through the door. He's at Moor Farm, and now he's a Derby County player. Kind of give Derby County fans who might have obviously seen him back in the Championship last year, and obviously playing against us for yourselves. But what kind of overall picture he is as a player, and how he's been getting on, and obviously signing for yourselves on a huge fee 5 years ago, and now he's left on a free, and how that has come about. So yeah, just kind of give us an overall piece of where he's at.
Rhian Brewster was signed for £23 million, maybe 23.5. My memory's not great. I remember his debut, Premier League, Fulham at home, and I was watching it with my young nephew, and I said, this guy is going to score us the goals to keep us in the Premier League. Derby County fans can relate to that, and believing you found that striker, finally. Brewster, unfortunately, wasn't the goaliest of strikers, and towards the latter time with the Blades, he won quite a few people over, playing in a deeper role. Sort of, you imagine like just a 10, maybe behind a 2 or a 1, and sort of operating in that deeper role and picking up pockets, and his passing, which sometimes looked woeful. I remember one sort of pass he had at Luton away, which is like a cross-come shot by the end of it, but I believe it was a pass, went out for a throw-in, and we were still thinking, what is he doing? And there was other moments where he would cushion a ball that was played over the top, absolutely beautiful, kill it dead, make the right pass, move into the channels, get into good positions then in the middle, and you thought, this guy's got it all. And he showed flashes of that Liverpool Academy superstar, which he was. He was a prodigy. And you look at his goal record for Liverpool. You look at his goal record at Swansea, 20 games, 10 goals, a goal every other game. This is who we thought we were getting. But he didn't score the goals for us, as you'll have seen with his goal record. His goal return for the Blades is very poor. But he will actually be remembered quite fondly in the end, not only for some good performances, and he did put in some good performances, but he also scored against the Pigs at Hillsborough very memorably. Not a difficult finish, but tucking the ball away, especially that end as well, celebrating in front of them like he was one of us, proper Blade. It really clearly meant a lot to him. That was fantastic. I think he really bought into the club, and the fans generally seemed to really like him, largely because he spoke really well, he seemed like he cared, and he tried his hardest. It just sometimes doesn't work out at certain clubs, but I think most Unitedites will wish Rhian Brewster well.
Yeah, I mean, when a player comes in with a price tag like that, he's going to command some sort of pressure, isn't he? And I think, the way he's departed, coming in on that big fee, he's then departed on a free transfer 5 years on. What's the feeling like in the fan base that he obviously was let go on his contract? He's been a free agent now for the last month or so. What was the feeling from the fan base on that?
I can personally only really speak for myself. I have seen some of the feedback, but I'm personally gutted that we didn't try. Maybe we did, but I think that trying to sell him last year when we knew he was coming into the end of his contract and the chances of renewing, not a difficult renewal in terms of for Rhian. I'm sure he would have signed a new deal with the Blades. Probably more difficult for us because the kind of wages that we gave him that he'd have been on. But I would say this with almost certainty that he would have been the highest paid player at Sheffield United just because he was brought in at that time when we were handing out Premier League contracts. Big wages, and he would still have been on that because, of course, why he'd dropped down a little bit. He'd had a percentage in his relegation wage drop clause, but other than that, he'd still been on really, really big wages. And I think it would have just been a case of the Blades hierarchy saying, well, do we need to spend this much a week on a player that occasionally gives you a 9 out of 10, but more often than not is either injured and unavailable or doesn't turn it on like he should. And clearly, when I saw clips of him on the training ground, you're like so frustrated because there's there's probably the most talented player we had on our books for years that didn't do it on a Saturday at 3:00. And that can be one of the most, as a fan, that can be one of the most frustrating things to watch. But when he did turn it on, you saw a real player there. And I do think actually it's just the environment, because he did it at Swansea. Will he do it at Derby County? Because if he does, you've got him on a free. Got an absolute steal. I mean, it could be the difference between mid-table and playoffs.
Yeah, I think, as I say, the fan base reaction to the transfer has been kind of mixed. You've got those who are saying, why have we signed a player who's clearly been let go for a reason and has obviously had his injury problems? But then you've also got the other side of the coin, that, as you said there, where people could be saying, well, if it does work out and Eustace does improve players, which we know he can do, like he did with Dolan and Modix, there could be a player in there. And I think the big thing that the fan base are kind of wondering, and that you might be able to tell us, is what is his best position and role? Obviously, he might not have pulled up any major trees at Sheffield United, but obviously he probably played in a more prominent position throughout his time there.
Oh, I didn't expect to hear the word trees on Rams Talk. Outrageous scenes, unbelievable scenes. Here we go. What is his best position? I don't think Rhian even knows. So obviously when we bought him, he was a 9. He was a striker, a fox in the box, your classic striker. And I always think, when I think of fox in the box, I think of Francis Jeffers. And he ended up playing like Francis Jeffers when he went to Arsenal. But that's one for the younger, of course. But actually looking so much better, as I mentioned, latterly, playing in that 10 and just playing slightly deeper. But you're not going to get as many goals there. Now, what he would do is, when he was playing deeper, when the attack was being formed, he would get forward and he would join the attack. And that's why he found himself in like the far post position at Hillsborough, ready to, make a tap in. But there'd be other games where he would be a little bit too far back and you're thinking, Rhian, what are you doing there? So I would like to see a fully fit Rhian Brewster playing as a 9 off the shoulder with a striker alongside him. I think he's best up top in a 2. And I think if you get him firing, he's a confidence player. I think he's one of the most obvious confidence players I've ever seen. It started badly for Rhian at United, and he never quite had that run of 15 great games where he could just show us exactly what we've all believed he's capable of. And we just saw glimpses. Let's hope, apart from against the Blades, let's hope he can put it together for the Rams.
Yeah, and you mentioned one of those glimpses was a goal against Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, what would you say that was his probably finest moment at the club? Would you pick out another one?
No, that's it. That's it. That's it. If I even pretended and tried, I mean, there has been some other good moments, but if I was to try to, any Blade that said anything else would be lying. That's it. That's all it's about. Imagine, going to Forest and scoring, and you'd all feel, whoever that player was, you'd all feel an affinity with them. So that's why the fact that it's come in the final year of his contract, it's almost sweet revenge. It's sweet. It's poetic justice, if you will. It's all the things to all the fans that gave him so much stick. And I don't actually think lots of fans gave him vocal stick on a match day, but I have seen on social media, because he is one of the prominent people on social media, that he has received quite a bit of, over the years, a bit of stick. And that's not right, because he's always spoken very well. He's always spoken very fondly about Sheffield, about Sheffield United, and about his time, and about trying to give his all. I've never heard him say a bad word about the club. I hope he never does. But also, I won't begrudge him if he scores against United, and if we beat you 3-1 and he scores right at the end, which is the only way I'd accept it. I wouldn't begrudge him just trying to maybe a bit of that to some of the fans that gave him grief. I'd be like, okay, fine, we've won the game, and I understand that. I watched you get 4 or 5 years of grief on social media. I could understand from a human element that reaction. Personally, I think he's better than that. Don't think he'll do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of touched on it there, and it was kind of going on to my next question was, what is he like as a person? Obviously, he's got to have some sort of resilience. If he's gone through, obviously, an injury patch, and he's obviously gone through a few with yourself. He obviously came from Liverpool with high expectations when you signed him for that fee, and and it hasn't worked out. And he's 25 now, and he's now looking at what his next stages are. And obviously, he's chosen Derby County for that. But I mean, to do what he's done, he must have some sort of resilience. But what has he been like as a person? Obviously, you can only see what's been portrayed with you via the club. But what have you seen from him at the time at Sheffield United? How he is?
Well, he's still young, as you mentioned, 25. He can still turn it all around and have that career that many believed he would have and, be a Champions League winner. There was talk when we signed him, people were saying this guy's going to win the Ballon d'Or one day. There really were. There was talk that was that big. It hasn't been anywhere near that. But Luke, who used to work for our channel, Sheff United Way, met Rhian and actually did some recording with him for Sheff United Way. We've still got a lovely clip of him promoting our channel. So I feel like I can speak from what Luke told me, is that he comes from a lovely family. Luke got the pleasure of meeting, I believe it was his mother, and said just how warm they were. And he stopped and was great with kids and always signing autographs, always smiling, always friendly, had no issue at all with having a chat with a fan. When we asked when Luke asked if he'd do a little bit of filming for us, he said absolutely no problem, and couldn't have been nicer about it. So that's my feedback that I heard about Rhian as a person. And when you are running a YouTube fan channel, you don't get those experiences all the time. Believe me, I won't mention any names, but I have had different experiences with professional footballers. So that is a good sign. The interviews, if you watch any of his interviews, the way that he speaks, he seems like a really honest guy. He seems like someone that cannot lie. He just seems like he wears his heart on his sleeve. And he actually, there's times when you listen to him that he has a childlike quality that is just quite endearing. But he's obviously got that resilience. He's obviously got that toughness because, like I said, he's had that quite a lot of stick on different social media accounts. I don't even know if he still runs his Twitter, actually. I'd have to have a look. But yeah, when that was more active, yeah, he did. If he actually looked at some of the mentions, and fair play to him, because I couldn't have handled it. So he must have real resilience, grit, resolve, strength, and determination. Because imagine what it must be like when you've been billed as a youngster, and you're only going to go one way, and it doesn't quite. I mean, he still made it in professional football, still something you and I would have dreamed of, but I'm sure his aspirations were bigger.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the aspirations and part of the move is probably to try and improve that picture that's been painted of him at the moment. And what would you say parts of the game he needs to work on if he wants to make a success at Derby County from what you've seen at his stint at Sheffield United?
Finishing. It needs to be, which is the thing that he didn't need to work on, we were told. I did an interview with a guy called Chris Williams, who has done a lot of stuff with Liverpool. He mainly works and focuses on the Bundesliga. He's a massive Liverpool fan, and he's had reasons, for his family reasons, to watch a lot of youth team football at Liverpool, Rhian's age group. And he told me a lot about Rhian before we signed him and did a video with us. And that was the thing that he said was his best quality. And his strength was his finishing, his shoot on sight. As I mentioned, Fox in the box. All he was interested in was scoring goals. So the rest of his game took a back seat, which is why it's so interesting that he actually looked really good for us in a deeper role. As maybe older people would call him an attacking midfielder. And he actually looked very competent when I'd been told when we first signed him all those years ago that was the worst parts of his game, was his link-up play, his passing. His teamwork. He was all just, which actually you want as a striker. You want a selfish striker, of course you do. And that's what we were told he was. And that's latterly not what we saw at all. He was a real team player. So you ask me that question and think, well, I'm going to have a straight answer. The thing that he needs to work on is the thing that maybe he's forgotten. Sometimes you get it with golfers, don't you? That the thing that they were so good at, it just kind of goes and they can't get it back and they can't figure out why. And I feel like that might be a case with Rhian, and he's going to go to John Eustace, who's going to, I think, help him get back there, because a new environment, apart from Ben Osborne, will be, I think, is Ben Osborne still there? He is, isn't he?
He is, yes, he is, yeah.
Yeah, so apart from
familiar
Ben,
face.
Apart from Ben, it'll be new faces. I think it's a fresh start, chance for him to go again, and he might just rediscover that love and that joy of just playing football that he would have had as a kid.
And with all that in mind, how, in your personal opinion, do you think he'll succeed?
Right. It all depends on two things. How he starts, because I've mentioned he's a confidence player, and his injuries. He was injured a lot. Really unlucky. Nothing you can do about that. None of the injuries were stupid injuries. He wasn't dropping aftershave on his foot or putting a drill through his own toenail. These were unfortunate injuries that can just happen to anyone. There were times when he was just coming back from long-term injury and we heard he's broken down again on the training ground. These are just so unlucky. And anyone who's been through a long-term injury knows you've got that road ahead of you, which is dull, it's boring, and it's long. And then to then have another injury on top of that, it feels like the world can be completely on top of you. When is this going to end? And I really felt for him during those darker times. And they must have been really difficult. And also remember, he's away from home as well, and all the people he grew up with. He's in a new city as a young man. So I think as long as he can stay injury-free and he starts well and the fans don't get on his back, yes, I think he'll be a big success because there's a real player in there.
Well, we'll wait and see. And Rhian Brewster signed on a 2-year deal on a free transfer to Derby County. Appreciate your time. For obviously anyone, we're probably going to meet and talk again throughout the season. But where can they find you if they do want to listen to you? Sheff
United Way on Instagram. Apparently, we're on TikTok, Facebook. I don't look at TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. So all the places you'd probably
all the above. No problem at all. Appreciate your time, Hal, and we'll wait and see if Rhian Brewster can rediscover his form at Derby County. Thanks again, Hal.